Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This is actually our 30th exploration together, which is quite something. And it also means we're getting really close to the end of our journey through the Inferno. If you've been with us, you'll remember we've been moving down through hell circles, seeing increasingly complex kinds of wrongdoing. We're now deep in the 8th circle, the one dealing with fraud, and we've been making our way through its 10 ditches, the bulges. Last time, it was the 9th, the sowers of discord.
And that brings us now, to the 10th and final Bolgia of Circle 8. Remember, Bolgia is just one of those 10 ditches here. And this one, it tackles, well, maybe the ultimate internal corruption, falsification, in all its forms. We're definitely building on themes we've seen lower down, moving from, say, outward deception to actually warping reality itself. For this deep dive, we're leaning mostly on the 30th canto of Dante's Inferno and also our own recap of where we were, just to keep things straight.
Exactly. And our mission today, like always, isn't just to, describe hell. It's about finding something useful for us. What can these guys, the falsifiers and their awful punishments, teach us about navigating our own stuff, our own choices? Okay, so let's get into it. The canto kicks off with some pretty intense mythological images, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Athamas and Hecuba.
Oh yeah, really striking. You have Athamas driven so mad he kills his son, thinking he's a lion cub, and Hecuba, her grief, the myths say, turned her into a crazed dog. These aren't just random myths Dante throws in. They show how extreme emotion or delusion can completely dangerously warp how we see reality, leading to awful actions. It's like an inner falsification, you could say. And it mirrors what the actual sinners in this Bolgia did externally.
Ah, okay. So it's setting up a parallel between that mythological madness and what Dante calls the moral madness of the souls here.
Precisely. It establishes this theme right away. Distorted perceptions, twisted identities. It's not just poor choices, it's a fundamental twisting of truth.
Got it. So after that intro, Dante lays out the different types, the categories of falsifiers down here.
That's right. He shows us people who falsified persons, those who falsified coins, counterfeiters, and finally those who falsified words. Basically liars. Covers a lot of ground, really.
Let's take the falsifiers of persons first. We get Gianni Schicchi.
Ah, Gianni Schicchi. Yeah, the classic case. Impersonated a dead man, Buoso Donati, just to rewrite the will in his own favor. Pure greed driving that one.
And then there's Mira, a much darker, different kind of story, disguising herself to, well, to be their own father.
Right. And it's interesting, as you say, they're grouped together, greed on one hand, this deeply unnatural desire on the other. But the common thread, it's that deliberate manipulation of identity, crossing fundamental lines of who you are or who someone else is, for selfish reasons, however different those reasons look on the surface.
Okay, that makes sense. They're both about fundamentally misrepresenting reality at the level of personhood. But then we meet Master Adam, the counterfeiter. And he's a memorable figure. Grotesque, dropsical, deformed.
Yeah, Master Adam. He confesses he counterfeited Florence's currency, the florin, for some local counts. And here, the contrapasso, the punishment fitting the sin, is incredibly vivid.
How so? Explain that connection.
Well, his physical state, the dropsy, causes immense swelling, bloating, distortion of his body. It directly mirrors how he took good metal and distorted its form and value to make fake coins. It's Contrapasso 101, basically. His body reflects his crime.
Wow. And then there's the thirst, right? He's tormented by this unquenchable thirst.
Exactly. It's symbolic, isn't it, of that endless dissatisfaction of greed. He tried to create false value, false wealth, and now he can't even satisfy the most basic, real need for water. It speaks volumes about the kind of emptiness that often comes with that sort of pursuit.
That idea of the punishment reflecting the sin.
Oh.
It's not just some medieval concept, is it? You see echoes. Like how constant dishonesty just destroys trust, or how chasing wealth endlessly can leave you feeling, well, empty.
Very true. It has a psychological reality to it. And Dante adds another layer with Master Adam, that memory detail.
Oh yeah, he remembers Casentino.
Yeah.
The place where he committed his crime, but specifically the cool streams there, the Fonte Branda.
Mm-hmm. That memory isn't comfort. It's part of his torture. The constant painful awareness of what he gave up, what real refreshment feels like now that it's lost forever because of his choices.
Oof. Memory is torment. That's harsh.
It really emphasizes how our choices can cut us off from things of real value, things that truly sustain us, and the regret that can linger.
Okay, so then things get even uglier, if that's possible. Master Adam gets into it with Sinon.
Ah, Sinon the Greek, the liar whose deception got the Trojan horse inside Troy's walls. A master falsifier of words.
And they just start hurling abuse at each other. Violent insults, Dante calls it.
Yeah, it's a pretty nasty, undignified squabble. And what's key here is Virgil's reaction. He sees Dante getting drawn in, fascinated by this vulgar fight, and he reprimands him, gently but firmly.
Right, that's such an interesting moment. What's the lesson there, do you think?
I think it's about, well, the dignity of emotional control, perhaps. Virgil's essentially saying, this isn't worth your attention. Getting caught up in this kind of base, empty conflict diminishes you.
Ah, so it's about discernment. Knowing what battles are worth fighting or even worth watching. Avoiding getting dragged down into pointless negativity.
Exactly. It's a sign of maybe spiritual maturity. Knowing where to invest your emotional energy. Not everything deserves your focus, especially not petty, morally bankrupt quarrels.
That resonates. Okay, so pulling back a bit, what's the bigger picture here? What's the overarching lesson about falsification from this whole bolgia?
I think a major one is the profound self-deception involved. All these falsifiers, they thought they could manipulate reality, trick others, get away with it. But in doing so, they fundamentally deceive themselves about the nature of reality and consequences. And look where it got them, trapped in punishments that are essentially the logical outcomes of their own actions.
So dishonesty, it ultimately bites you back. It's not just hurting others, it warps the perpetrator too.
Precisely. And that connects back to the contrapasso. It reinforces that idea that our actions don't just happen out there, they shape who we are. They shape our internal and external reality.
And you mentioned earlier this idea of falsity as a social disease. Can you expand on that? The descriptions of dropsy, the madness, they feel almost like plagues.
Yeah, it's a powerful analogy, especially thinking about medieval times and the very real fear of epidemics. Dante seems to suggest that dishonesty, like a disease, is contagious. It doesn't just harm the individual liar or counterfeiter, it spreads. It erodes trust, corrupts relationships, weakens the whole social fabric. It makes genuine connection and community much harder.
Like a sickness in the body politic almost. That's a strong image.
It really highlights how interconnected we are and how individual acts of falsity can have ripple effects.
Okay, so let's try and sum up the key takeaways from this deep dive into Canto 30. We've seen how falsifying starts almost with an inner distortion, like with Athamas and Hecuba. We've seen the self-deception inherent in trying to cheat reality.
And the contrapasso is showing how actions create consequences that mirror the sin itself, the torment of memory, losing touch with what's truly valuable.
Plus that lesson from Virgil about emotional control, about not getting sucked into pointless, degrading conflicts.
And finally, this idea of falsity as a social contagion, something that damages trust and community.
So connecting this back, as we try to do, to our own lives, our own journey, these are pretty timeless insights, aren't they, even from this ancient, grim depiction?
Absolutely. Because we all face moments, small or large, where we might be tempted to, bend the truth, present a false version of ourselves, maybe shade a situation, even in subtle ways.
Right. So maybe the final thought for you, listening now, is to reflect on that. Are there subtle ways you might be tempted to falsify? Little compromises with truth or authenticity in your own life? And what might be the real cost, not just externally, but internally? What are your own waters of Casentino, those sources of genuine fulfillment, peace, or connection that you might risk losing touch with through those kinds of deceptions?
It's definitely something worth pondering. This canto really pushes us to think about integrity, not just as a moral rule, but as something vital for a whole and healthy life.
A powerful reminder as we approach the very bottom of hell. Thank you, as always, for joining us on this deep dive.